You mentioned Rio Ferdinand. Is it true your dad discovered Rio Ferdinand?
No, no, he didn't discover him. No, my dad was football mad, football crazy. He just went every game. He'd be over the park watching, near where we lived in the old council estate where they lived till they died. My dad would look out and if the lights came on, there was an East London stadium. They'd have a game on it. He'd be over there watching a game. That who was playing. And he went to Chelsea to watch Chelsea youth team play West Ham in a Southern Junior Floodlight in Southern Junior Cup final. They beat us in the first leg, something like 4-2 or something at West Ham. And the second leg, Rio was still a schoolboy, and Tony Carr decided to play Rio. They might have beat us 4-1 in the first game even. I know they smashed us at home. And so really we thought, well, we've got no chance in the second leg. Tony stuck Rio in, who was still only a schoolboy 15. And my dad had rung me, we played that night at Newcastle, the first team. And my dad rung me and he said, Harry, I've just seen the best player I've seen in years at your club. I said, who's that? Who, Dad? I said, he said, the kid in midfield. I said, what, Frank? He said, no, Ferdinand. I said, Ferdinand? I said, he's a schoolboy. I said, did he? He wouldn't have played. He said, yeah, he did. Big tall boy. Kept picking out, running 40, 50 yards with it, gliding. Anyway, 10 minutes later, really? Tony Carr rings me and said, Harry, we won. And we actually won the game, I think, 4-0. So we won it on aggregate. And he said, Rio Ferdinand played Rio. He said he was the best player. He said it was incredible. What a performance. And he played in midfield that night. And yeah, so that was, no, my dad actually rung me, but he didn't discover him. But he certainly loved him when he first saw him. He was, special talent.
Yeah, he certainly was. Glenn, you obviously saw that special talent as well in Rio Ferdinand because you had him around that squad in '98 when he was a very young player.
Yeah, I took him to the World Cup for a bit of experience, really. But also, you have to take a player that you think can do the job on the pitch. Number one, it was very young, but that was one of the frustrating things in losing the job when I lost it. Because Rio, I spoke to Rio about this, but I had some fantastic plans for Rio because in a three at the back and him coming out from the back and going into midfield and doing, that's how we wanted to play him. And that's how he played in my last game for England. We beat the Czech Republic 2-0 and he played sweeper and he was outstanding because I said to him, I want you to go all the way. I think I said to him, I want you to try and get hold of some old German tapes of Beckenbauer and Matthias, more Matthias, because it was more his generation. And I want to show you getting through the pitch. I want you to go all the way, make the difference in the midfield. Because as Harry said, he's played as a kid. He was a midfield player. I think he's even played up front at one stage, but he was so comfortable on the ball. And I think over his career in a back four, it's held him back for his real talent. He's never been able to show his real talent. In a three, in the centre of a three, he would have been absolutely Bobby Moorish. It'd have been sensational because with the other two centre-backs staying and the midfield player ready to drop in, Ince used to do that for us with England. And that was the plan I wanted to go to the Euros and put Rio in the side. And it was so exciting, and to think of him playing in that role because he could defend as well. As you say, Harry, he's taller than you think. He's about 6'3".
Oh, yeah.
Amazing height. When I first went to England and I first met him and brought him into the training, I brought him in from just to train with the senior team. I couldn't believe how big he was. He was just a young kid. He was only 16, 17 then. And I thought, this fella is going to be absolutely spot on for what I want to do. No disrespect to the others. Tony Adams played it excellent because of his experience. But going forward and in the future, Rio, I don't know if you agree, Harry, Rio in a three would have been sensational.
Absolutely. I think, and I ain't saying it because you're here, Glenn. I've said it to people over the years. It's such a shame that we didn't keep you, wasn't in that job longer because, I think that you would have changed so much in the way that England played football and the ideas that you had. And as you say, the Germans did it. They changed always Sammer, Lothar Matthäus, whoever, going back from Beckenbauer, someone who could come in and overload the midfield and play and join that was your idea. And it would have been incredible. I think it would have been And it was just, as I say, it was just a shame we never saw that really come to fruition as it could have done.
Glenn, when you're talking to Rio Ferdinand about Mateus and Beckenbauer, was he the type of character who had that thirst for knowledge that if you said, go back and watch these videos, he lapped that up, that he wanted to see it?
I guess he did. I know now that he would have done. He loves football. And I think at that age, I wasn't 100% sure. I didn't know. And this is the thing with an England manager. You're sort of leasing the players. You don't own the car. You're leasing the car because you have them for 10 days and they go to their club and you're not quite sure of their character. And do they really, do they study the game? Do they want to improve? And I think Rio would have been like that, to be honest. But he was taking everything in that I was saying. But he didn't need really to go and look at them old tapes of Sammer and Mateus and people like. I think he had it. I knew he had it naturally within him. And I knew that he'd played at a young age in midfield, and he could. What Rio could do more better than any centre back is he could cope with pressure, and I mean pressure on the ball. And that's the problem. I was brought up in an era where our defenders, I always used to think your weakest link is your defender's possession, and our defenders, we had a generation where they'd panic. They'd want to play it long. They wouldn't want to take a risk going into midfield. So they were happy to hit the front man. And that's how we played through that era. Rio, you had to close Rio down from 1 yard. You had to get a yard in front of him, in face, for him to actually sort of maybe go back to the goalie or to do something. He could play with his head up. And I knew he had that natural ability. And if you're at the back of the team and you've got everything in front of you, it's easy. And he just would have got better and better. He was a fantastic player anyway. Of course he was for Manchester United at the back there. But there was games where I could see he would want to go and he couldn't go and go into midfield because he couldn't leave his mate, whoever he's playing with, 1v1, or sometimes there was 2 up against him. So he was always restricted when in possession, but he would have been, as a 3 playing at a club level or certainly under me, he would have been able to have gone and I'd have let him go. And then he'd have got back when he needed to get back, and all them things would have, Incy, as I said, would cover him. It was fantastic. It really was great working with him. And I think he was thirsty for knowledge, but he never got that chance. I don't think, Harry, he would have played it. Did he play? United never, under Sir Alex, didn't ever play with a 3. I don't think.
No, I wouldn't have. Not that I can remember, no.
No, he didn't really play in a 3 as such during his peak of his career. Yeah, but
it was an amazing story, Glenn, just finishing Rio. I loaned him to Bournemouth and he went there and was suddenly I get a phone call from Mel Machin, who was the manager of Bournemouth at the time. And Mel rang me, he was a good friend of mine. And he said, Harry, he said, I've had Martin Edwards on the phone. He said, from Man United, the chairman, asking me if I would sell Rio. He'd played on the Saturday at Stockport or somewhere for Bournemouth. And Martin Edwards, whether he must have gone to the game, maybe his pal was the chairman. Man United weren't playing that day. They had a Sunday game. And he'd seen Rio play and so he'd rung Mel thinking that he was a Bournemouth player. He said, and as chairman of Man United, he said to Mel, how much would you take for Rio? And Mel said, he belongs to West Ham. He don't belong to us, Mr. Edwards. He said, you better, and he said he was choked because obviously he thought he was going to get him off of Bournemouth, who were a 3rd division team. Anyway, he rang me up, Martin Edwards. He said, Harry, Martin Edwards, he said, how much would you want for Rio, the boy Ferdinand? I said, he's not for sale, Mr. Edwards. I said, he's going to be the best centre-half in Europe. I said, he's not for sale. He said, well, he must have a price. Would you take £1 million? I said, no. I said, you could sit here all day and he's not for sale. There's not a price that he's not available at any price. And it was amazing that years later, they paid £32 million for him.
Didn't they? Yeah.
So Martin Edwards was quite a good judge that day when he tried to buy him.